Hey friends, let's talk about our trip to Northern Ireland. Guys, Northern Ireland is a magical place. So, quick rundown. Northern Ireland and Ireland are not really the same thing. Well, okay, so Ireland would be referring to like the island of Ireland, okay? So there's an island, it's called Ireland. Most of it is the Republic of Ireland, which is not part of the UK. But this section of the north is called Northern Ireland, and it is part of the UK, and that's where we were. And it was amazing, and I have a lot to say about it, so let's jump right in. So first of all, our flight from Glasgow to Belfast was at the butt crack of dawn. It was terrible. We got up really, really early, took a taxi to the airport, flew to Belfast. It was about like a 20-25 minute flight, very short, and immediately set about having a wander. We had a great breakfast at a cool cafe there in the city, and then we were able to store our luggage at like the tourism center, which is really cool. I mean, it cost money. It cost a pretty penny actually, but it was nice to not have to worry about our bag. We walked around a lot, and then we had bought tickets to go to Titanic Belfast, which is, it's not like technically a museum. It's sort of like an experience type of thing. It's kind of a museum though. So the Titanic was built in Belfast. So they've got like a really strong, obviously, connection to the ship. And so they set up this really incredible like space where you go and you learn about the city of Belfast and how it built the Titanic, and you know, all these people came together to make it happen. And then, you know, it kind of didn't talk about the tragedy too much, although when it did, it was like awful, and I was definitely crying and I felt like an idiot. Like, do people always cry here? Because I feel really dumb. But they even had like a ride in there. Like when they were talking about building it, they had a straight up ride, like where you sat and like went through a thing. I felt like we were at Disneyland for a little moment. But it was really cool. It was well worth the money if you ever go to Belfast. I recommend it. Then we went and checked into our Airbnb. It was a really cool place. This guy has a really, really nice like townhome, and then he on Airbnb lets out a few of the rooms in his home, and it was just really nice, and he was really cool. We went and checked in there, had a little rest because obviously we'd woken up really early. And then we went to like an Asian fusion place for dinner, which was really fun, really kind of quirky, but we loved it. It was really nearby where we were staying, which is nice. Then we had a wander, went to the botanical gardens. On Saturday morning, we had reserved and already paid for a rental car. Little did we know that the laws are a little bit more strict in Northern Ireland. So it was kind of crazy, but we did get it worked out. And drove up to Circus Castle, which was super fun. It was kind of a weird, okay, it was amazing, but it was weird. So they had this room where they were showing like video presentations, and one of the videos in there, I kid you not, was like a children's like animated movie talking about the history of the castle, like giving this tale, which, you know, may or may not be true, about some suspected cannibalism, which it did not shirk away from depicting. I'm so mad that I didn't pull out my phone and get a little bootleg of that scene, because it was amazing. We watched it twice. We watched the whole movie twice, and it was the best thing of my life. I guess somewhere in the back of my mind, I assumed the video was on YouTube somewhere, but it's not. We've looked high and low, and I'm super sad because it was amazing. Then we drove up to Glenarm, Forest Park, I believe it's called, and that was a really cool place. Just this gorgeous area. They had a lot of walks, so they call hiking walking or hill walking here. It wasn't really a hike, thankfully. It was about as much of a hike as I would ever be up for, but it was amazing. There was tons of waterfalls, and it was just very green. But when we got there, it was so cold, and I didn't bring a scarf on the trip. I just had a jacket and a small sweater, and I was so cold. And so we went into the gift shop to buy a scarf, and we're looking at the scarves, and one of them definitely had like a straight up huge spider living in it. And we jumped like 30 feet in the air in the gift shop. Luckily, the old woman who was running it had like stepped out somewhere, so nobody was there to witness our shame, but it was kind of amazing. I did not buy the spider scarf. After that, we drove to Torr Head. It was kind of a crazy drive getting there, some like winding roads, a lot of hills. So it's the closest part in Northern Ireland to Scotland. So you can actually see Scotland from Torr Head. We also had to like actually hike up to like the hill that was Torr Head, and then there was like an old ruined shack up there, which is frankly terrifying, but also amazing. We loved the shack. And then you can go on the roof of the shack, and it was so windy. You just have to walk up this like rusty metal staircase to get onto the roof of this old shack that's literally imploding, like on this crazy windy hill. I probably have never felt stronger wind in my life. Like I kind of felt like I could probably just jump off the roof of the shack and kind of just like float down the hill. Didn't try it, for the best, but whatever. After that, we kept driving along. We had booked an Airbnb for the next 2 nights in the same place so that we kind of have a home base to explore the coast from. There's a really kind of famous adventure thing to do. It's the CarrickaRee rope bridge, which is like a little rope bridge that used to be used to cross over to a little island. And people can do it. It costs a bit of money. We decided to go there in the evening when it wasn't open, just to like poke around. We're really glad that we did, because the evening light led to some great pictures, and we had an amazing time just wandering. So we decided not to do the rope bridge just because we felt like we'd kind of already seen the cool scenery, and we didn't really feel like paying a bunch of money to walk 4 steps across a rope bridge. So then we went and checked into our Airbnb. It was a little cottage in a village called Port Valentine, and it was an amazing little place. It was actually brand new on Airbnb, so we were like a little nervous to book it, but we're really glad that we did. It was a great place. And we got in so late that there wasn't really time to get any sort of dinner, but they had left us breakfast material like eggs and bread and stuff and milk. So we had breakfast for dinner and then went to bed. And the next morning we went to church. So that was in Coleraine is where the church was. And then we went to St. Patrick's Church in Coleraine, which was really cool. So we decided to go over to the Dark Hedges, which is just basically like some trees on a road, but they're really beautiful. They're very famous and oft photographed. So there was a restaurant by them. So we went to the restaurant there at that hotel, and then we went to the hedges, but I wasn't really able to get any good pictures because it just wasn't a good time of day for photographing. So we just kind of had a wander, and I took a few pics and was kind of like, oh, that didn't really turn out. We'll have to come back tonight. So we went to the ruins of an old friary that was really fun, just kind of off the road. After that, we went to Valentine Harper, and we did a walk along the coast to Elephant Rock and to like a little white beach there that was gorgeous. Lots to see, but we didn't have a ton of time because we wanted to get over to the Giant's Causeway, which is amazing. It was kind of crazy because we knew that the causeway closed at 6, and they say that you have to get there an hour before close. So we knew we had to get there by 5. So we got there a little before 5, and we paid the crazy high entrance fee. I don't even remember. It was really expensive. And we got like our little audio guides, and they're like, audio guides have to be returned by 6. Like we close at 6. So we felt like kind of rushed, and you have to walk like a ways from the visitor center down to the causeway, which is basically all this basalt, like volcanic rock that formed in columns, and you can like actually see the columns. It's incredible. And so we felt really rushed, and we're like kind of walking, and it was almost 6. We were barely going to have time to get back to the visitor center when we realized we'd only walked like half the path. Like there were still tons to see. We were kind of devastated. So we rushed back up to the visitor center, returned our audio guides, but then there was like still people walking down. And so I Googled it and we looked into it a bit, and probably should have Googled it beforehand, because basically all we paid for was like the audio tours and the privilege of parking in their parking lot instead of elsewhere. Because any person can walk there. Like you can walk there whenever. So what we ended up doing was taking a different path along the cliffs and kind of working our way down and then going back the way that we'd gone originally, which was perfect because the evening light was setting in. It was perfect for pictures. It was an amazing walk, really good weather. And the crowds had really died down by then. And then we went back to the Dark Head just to get some better pictures, which I didn't really do a great job. There's a lot about photography I have yet to learn. I didn't really know how to photograph that particular situation, but I'm glad that we went back and I gave it another go. So then, yet again, by the time we got back to our Airbnb in Port Valentine, like it was pretty late, but we really wanted dinner. So we tried to go to a restaurant that was in the harbor, and they didn't have any tables for the night. So we went to Bushmills Inn, which is the restaurant there, which was really fancy. The next morning we checked out of our Airbnb, which was super sad because we loved it. And we went to Circus Castle, which was really nearby where we'd been staying. And this is another kind of castle on the cliffs on the seaside. Super fun. We had to wander. The castle had actual stones from the Giant's Causeway like built into the castle, which was amazing to see. Obviously now you could not build something from the rocks there. You would probably get fined or thrown in jail. But it was really cool to see like how the landscape that we had seen had worked its way into the old architecture, and it was really fun. We really enjoyed Dunluce a lot. Then we went to a place called, oh, I forgot to look up how to pronounce this, the Downhill Demez. I don't know, guys. It was really cool. Basically, this rich dude decided to build a really cool house and like a temple / library on some cliffs. And there was like a house for his daughter there. And it's just this huge grounds. Well, the house actually was standing until, well, it's still standing, but it's only a shell. It was still like an actual house until like the 40s. And then it was just really let go. And now it's just a shell, which is too bad. But it was gorgeous, and the library / temple was amazing, although it's gonna fall into the sea, so hopefully they can save it, because it's like a lot closer to the edge of the cliff as the cliff erodes away than it was when it was built. It's right on the edge now. It's kind of terrifying. But that was really fun. He had also planted like a whole grove of trees with like a man-made lake, and it was amazing. We had just a wander everywhere, had a great time. We went into the town after that, into Downhill, and we went to a great place for lunch that we found on TripAdvisor. And then we were gonna go to get some ice cream from like a dairy farm that like does ice cream. And like we literally showed up on this farm and like walked into their little like building and no one was there. So we just like stood there awkwardly and like left. We really wanted ice cream, but it was not meant to be. Was not meant to be. Also, I think that we stood there and then felt awkward and left is probably like the motto of my life, so whatever. So then we went to Gilligan Point, which is the highest point of Northern Ireland. It's not the highest point of the island of Ireland because the Republic of Ireland kind of juts up on the west coast, but you could see the Republic of Ireland like right there, like it was like a stone's throw away, so that was kind of fun. It was just a really pretty beach and there was decent weather at that point, and we just had to walk around and enjoyed that. So that was kind of the end of the road trip. Then we drove into Derry, which was the city at the end of our journey, and we checked into our Airbnb there and just kind of ditched the car and walked into the city. So we were on the water side, I believe they call it, of the city, and so we had to walk into the actual city across the Peace Bridge, which was gorgeous. I took so many pictures, it's not even funny. And we had gotten a recommendation for a restaurant. So we went to this restaurant, and I think it took us an hour to be seated and then like an hour to get our food after we'd ordered. And it was only so-so. And it was our only evening in Derry, so we really wanted to walk around, and there's a lot of really political art. It's a very, very, very political city, and it just really interested us. It also is a walled city. And so we wanted to like walk the wall and do all the cool things and see all the murals. And we basically just sat in this restaurant and ate some only so-so food. So that was definitely like the low point of the trip. But we did still walk around the walls a little bit, and we still saw some of the murals. And then walking back across the Peace Bridge, that was when I took all the pictures because it was such low light. It made for, I don't know, some fun lighting to take pics in. And Derry was really cool. I would love to go to Derry again. I would love to go to Belfast again as well, but I do feel like we actually saw Belfast, whereas with Derry, didn't feel like we saw it as much. And then we went back and went to bed, and the next morning we were able to take the rental car just straight to the Enterprise in Derry it's by the airport, but it's not at the airport. So they kind of jumped in the car and drove us. But yeah, the airport was tiny. I think it had 2 gates, and our flight was late because it was Ryanair, but it didn't matter because it was just at like 11:30 in the afternoon, no big deal. Had a bite to eat, hopped our plane, and got back to Glasgow. So we had a blast. The scenery brought me to tears several times. It was a gorgeous drive. Lots to see, lots to do. Highly recommended. Northern Ireland, it was gorgeous. We miss it. We love it. But it is what it is. When going home means going back to Glasgow, it's not too bad, so it works out. Bye, friends.